Hello and welcome to this two-part kind of mini-series of private cloud deployment and automation on Nutanix. Part one, we'll discuss Prism Element, give a brief overview of that dashboard, understanding storage container creation, image creation. Then we'll flip over to Prism Central. We'll actually import those images, enable flow, enable COM automation. And then in part two, we'll go back to Prism Central and we'll actually create categories and security policies, which the security policies is really flow. And then we'll actually flip over to our automation platform Calm and create two blueprints, one Windows and one Linux. And as part of that blueprint creation, I'll show you how to assign categories within that blueprint so that upon deployment, they automatically get added. Then we'll flip over to flow. We'll apply the policy that we created, and then we will flip back to the VMs and verify that the policy actually is enforcing it. So let's begin. So this is the Prism Element dashboard. From left to right, we kind of give summary information, performance, health, and alert information. This information is also available in Prism Central, but even on a more granular scale. But for today's session, we're just going to concentrate on the storage part. So I'll click on storage. And Nutanix storage, we don't really manage storage from that perspective. We manage policies. So by default, when a cluster is created, all of the resources from the nodes in a Nutanix cluster get added to a default storage pool. And then as you add nodes into that cluster, those resources are already automatically consumed into the storage pool. From a what quote unquote management type perspective, which is really around policies, because we don't deal with LUNs or RAID groups or any of that. We have something called replication factor RF2 and RF3, which you can see here in this column. We are in a current RF2 state. This particular lab is a single node cluster, so RF3 is not possible. You have to have a minimum of 5 nodes. But for now, let's go ahead and create a storage container that we're going to use. And I'll give the storage container a name. And we'll look at some of the advanced settings. And we can see that we can assign a reserve capacity for this, also an advertised capacity. So when you think of things in like the terms of a data store will advertise a certain amount of space. So we can put in a number here such that when the container is deployed, it will show the amount of capacity it has as that number. Then we can enable features such as compression, deduplication, and erasure coding. But for now, we'll just keep the defaults and click Save. So our container was created. There it is, POC images. Now let's flip over to our VM view. So I have several VMs deployed into this cluster, but the ones we're going to be working with today are this powered off CentOS VM and this Windows 2012 VM. And what we're actually going to do is create an image based upon those VMs that we will later consume into that COM blueprint we'll make in part 2 of the series. So I need to get some information on these VMs. So if I highlight that particular VM and click Update, what I'm interested in is the storage container it's deployed to. So if I look at this, I can see that this is currently deployed to the images container within this Nutanix cluster. And without extending the video longer than it needs to be, I already know that the Windows 2012 one is as well. So the last thing I need to get is the UUID information of the disk of these VMs. So let me SSH into the CVM. And I just need to perform a little ACLI command. And then the name of that VM. And I can see that the VM disk UUID is right here. So we'll copy that. And we'll flip back over, and now I'm going to go to images. Click Upload Image. And I'm going to just make this the CentOS 7 COM image. And this is where I want to select my POC images container that I just created, and I'm going to give it a URL. So what I'm actually doing is connecting to a Docker container that's presented by NFS storage here to get this disk and turn it into a consumable image. So I type in the IP address of the cluster. Oops, it's POC images. Images. So we want there. And then the disk UID. And click Save. So we'll flip over and monitor the status. And it's uploading this image. And completed. So now I'll do the same thing for Windows. Image configuration, upload, and I already got the UID, the VM disk UID for this VM. Put it on the POC images. Oops. And we'll monitor that status. So this image upload completed. Let's flip over to the image catalog and just confirm that they are there. So this is the Windows one we just uploaded and the CentOS. So we are good to go there. Now let's flip over to Prism Central. And again, this is the main Prism Central dashboard. You'll notice that Prism Central is your UI, your interface, your control plane for multiple cluster administration, right? So the Prism element that we were just logged into is runs on a per cluster basis. So each Prism element manages only its own cluster, and then the Prism element runs on every CVM that's deployed. But so it's all highly available. But Prism Central, if you have multiple clusters, or even if you have a single cluster like I do in this situation, is really where you're going to spend most of your time. So for now, let's go ahead and import those images that we just created. So we go to images here, and I just want to import images. I'm just going to do the specific ones that we have. So I'll select images. So we'll do the column and the CentOS. Click Next. And those will now get imported into Prism Central, which will then allow us to use it within the Calm Blueprint here in the next series. So we'll give that a few minutes. Flip over to the task. I think it's already done. Yep, we're good. So now the next step is just to enable Calm and enable Flow. It's very simple, just a few clicks. So I click on this question mark here, click New in Prism Central, and I want to enable App Management, which is called Calm. Let's click Enable, and click Save. And that'll run for a few minutes, and Calm will be enabled. So it's starting to kick off the process. This will run for about 5 minutes or so. Almost there. And it has completed. So now let's flip over and do the same thing for Flow, our network virtualization and microsegmentation platform. So just click microsegmentation, enable it, and we'll monitor that task for a few minutes here. And it has already completed. So very simple, as you can see. So we'll flip over to Calm real quick. So we just go down to Services, Calm. So there's no applications, obviously. So if we go down to Projects, by clicking this button down here on the lower icon, A default project is created. So if we just click on that, we gotta have to go ahead and add a couple configuration parameters in here. So select the provider, which is obviously Nutanix, and we only have one cluster configured, so I just select that cluster and the only network I have deployed there as well. Click confirm, and for true multi-user and role-based access control, you'll want to add additional users in here, and that's really simple to do. You already have to have like an Active Directory deployed or what have you, but I'm just going to add a group called SSP admins and give it project admin role and just click save. So that's a whole other series in itself, but this is more about just showing how easy it is to deploy Flow and Calm and then creating some blueprints. So now that we have all this done, we just click save, and we are now ready to create blueprints. So that is the end of this series. The next one will be actually making those blueprints and going over categories, etc. And we'll do that here shortly. So I hope this first part has been somewhat informational, and look forward to seeing the next one. Thanks.